moon, May 12th, 2025 at 5:56 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time at 22 degrees Scorpio, 13 minutes. So we've got fixed fire or fixed earth in Taurus down here where the sun is, and the moon's up in fixed water in Scorpio, but that sun is shining a spotlight right on that moon, making it nice and big and bright. Now Taurus is all about agriculture, horticulture, solid, strong, thoughtful, slow. This is our financial access too. So this Taurus money is more personal. It's our income. Generally, it's banking, wealth, that type of thing. Now with Scorpio up here, we've got emotional intensity, passion, focus to the point of obsession at times. Great secret keeper though. Now, on the financial access here, we're seeing investments, inheritances, insurances, things like that. It's money you have with other people, basically. Now, with it being Scorpio and ruled by Pluto, we've got the underworld coming in, so we can have some criminal stuff too here. And money laundering is the first thing that comes to my mind. But both signs are stubborn, but Taurus wins on that one. And that same day, just a half hour after the full moon, Mercury, our god of communication down in Taurus, is going to square Pluto up in Aquarius. And remember, Mars is down here. It's about 10 degrees now, but Pluto's at 4-ish. But that's still definitely operational in that opposition, that Mars-Pluto. So expect some really harsh words coming out around this full moon. And remember, Pluto is retrograde, or went retrograde May 4th, so it's stopped up in the sky. So this is going to be really interesting, really volatile for a few days there too. Now the other transit that really popped out to me was Uranus. Now it's sitting at 27 degrees Taurus, and the sun is at 22, so it's only 5 degrees away. So we're going to be having a taste of rebellion and even revolution, because remember, the moon up here, it's going to be opposing it, and the moon in mundane astrology is the populace, the humanity, basically. So we're going to be up in arms, that's for sure, the masses. So anyway, I hope to see you in the extended version where I'll go into this in more detail, and I also want to go over Venus going over into Aries, zero Aries for the final time, and I hope to see you there. Bye! Remember to like and subscribe! Mom, welcome back to the Magical Mystery School, and thank you so much for joining us for the extended version of the full moon in Scorpio, May 12th, 2025. So the first thing I have to ask everybody, how are you doing with Mars opposed Pluto? Are you surviving? It was exact on April 26th, but it's definitely still operational right now. So this is some intense times. Remember the Chinese curse. May you be born in interesting times, okay? But, okay, so what did I do for that Mars opposed Pluto? I went to a percussion concert. I thought I'd get some real primal drumming in there, and I did. But a lot of other really cool stuff. It was really eye-opening. Anyway, what else happened? Well, we had the Pope's funeral. And I was a little surprised that they'd bury him on a day with Mars opposed Pluto, but because you know the best astrologers in the world live at the Vatican, I'm sure, you know. So anyway, so that was kind of interesting. And the other thing, you know, I just cannot wait until they open up that library they have. Can you imagine the astrology information they have through the Dark Ages and Renaissance, and they even have tons of Mayan stuff in there. I would love to see that. But anyway, okay, so just a little review. Pluto is going, I'm going to try to publish this May 2nd. Pluto is station retrograde on May 4th, so that makes it super powerful. And, you know, with this full moon in Scorpio, it's the modern ruler of Scorpio, where Mars is the ancient ruler. So keep that in mind. That's giving it more power. And then remember that Mars and Pluto are, like Pluto is the higher octave of Mars. And all that basically means is the energy of the two planets is very, very similar, but the Pluto energy is vibrating at a higher level. Okay. Now, I'm also going to start adding a few little, I call it the art of astrology tips, just some ideas for interpreting your chart that you might be able to go a little bit further, in your own understanding of your chart, because that's really my goal here. So everybody, I hope, has got their chart. And the first thing, if you have never had an astrology reading by a professional astrologer, do it. It can be a little expensive because, an astrologer has to print out your chart. They have to look at it. They have to think about it. They have to figure out your solar arc, your progressed planet. So it's not like, a psychic can more like just sit down and tell you what they're picking up. It's not like that for astrologers. So that's why it's usually a little bit more expensive. But the main thing I wanted to mention, okay, so you got your chart and you have a rising sign. And remember, every sign has a ruling planet. So, for example, if you're a Virgo rising, Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So Mercury is the ruler of your chart. So it becomes a little bit more significant of a planet. So if like Pluto is squaring your Mercury, that's a little bit more intense if you're a Virgo rising. Okay, so I just wanted to add that. And I've got a sheet that'll show you all those, but I'll show you that when I bring the camera down. So, see you in a second. Okay, here we go. But the first thing I'm going to do is show you those ruling planets I was telling you about. Okay, so here's all the signs, all 12 signs of the zodiac, Aries through Pisces, and these are the houses that they each rule, first 1 through 12. And then this is the elements. So these mean fire, earth, air, water. Fire, earth, air, water, fire, earth, air, water. And that goes to each sign. And then here's the modalities. So that's that. You hear me saying this, cardinal, fixed, mutable. Cardinal, fixed, mutable. Cardinal. So Libra is a cardinal air sign that rules the 7th house. Sag rules the 9th house and is a fire sign and is mutable. Okay. Now here are the rulers for each one of those signs. So Mars rules Aries, the Moon rules Cancer, Venus rules Libra, Saturn rules Capricorn. So you're welcome to take a screenshot of that. It's got, hopefully you can read that. Oh, and these are the modern ruler and the ancient ruler. Modern, ancient, modern, ancient. Okay. So I just wanted to show you that so you could see what was going on. But the first thing I want to start looking at the wheel here is Venus. Now remember, on April 30th, Venus went right went into Aries, that 0 degrees Aries point. So she's, this is the beginning of the of our whole zodiac wheel. It's the most creative. It's where we have the most ideas for possibilities. And remember, Venus is leaving Pisces, the sign of, I always think of, gossamer flowing lavender robes and gowns and things like that. And then she's going to come into Aries and she's going to put her gym shoes on and go out and play pickleball. That kind of thing. So a little bit change of energy there. Now, just remember, with all this, it is not just Venus. You guys have been hearing me talk about this over and over. There is so much going on on this world axis point, 0 degrees Aries, that we really could be creating a whole new social structure that, that maybe in 200 years they're going to look back and say, this is when this started. This is when society said, we're not going to put up with this anymore, or that kind of thing. That's what I'm hoping for with some stuff. Anyway, okay. And just to remind you too, on May 2nd, that's hopefully today when I get this posted, is when Venus is going to conjunct Neptune. All right. And interestingly enough, you know, how I was talking about octaves, well, Venus is the lower octave of Neptune. So again, there we've got similar energies, but the Neptune would be vibrating at a higher level. And just remember, Pisces, there's a lot of connections here. Pisces is ruled by Neptune, but Venus is exalted in Pisces. So there's a real camaraderie there for these two planets for sure. But for, you know, with this conjunction though that's happening on that's coming up here on May 2nd, Venus isn't totally going to lose her Pisces feel, of course, because Neptune rules Pisces. And it's actually for us, well, so this is a great time for us to imagine, to start visualizing what we do want to create. This is the time to do it. And the creation part, the actually doing it, we've got Saturn up here at like 27 degrees Pisces, right? I'll put him right there. So he's going to be going into Aries and leaving Pisces May 24th, if I'm remembering correctly. So that's coming up. But so after May 24th, we're actually going to feel like we can do these things that we're imagining now. But please, and I'm really asking everyone, put your thoughts, your energy into the most constructive, joyful, future concepts you can come up with. I know there's some stuff going on. It might seem like everything is falling apart. Well, remember our Tower card. Things do need to fall apart sometimes before we can rebuild. So just trust the universe and just try to stay keep your vibration as high as possible. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention too is Saturn going into Aries on the 24th. That's another piece of that great wobble that I've been talking about, because Saturn will go back into Pisces on September 2nd this fall and be in there and then fully go into Aries in 2026. So that's that wobble, you know, the retrograde over a house cusp going back and forth. Okay, so now let's go ahead and, oh, and I did want to show you this too. One last time. I love my teaching aids. What can I say? And this was that one that I did that tracked the Venus-Mercury retrograde cycle, you know, showing Venus went back and was in Aries February 6th, right? That was the first time. And then Mercury followed suit on March 3rd. And, you know, it went down. And then the sun went into that 0 degrees Aries on the 20th. Then Neptune went into 0 degrees Aries on the 30th. And then when you see, this is up here. When this retrograde planets, both of these Venus and Mercury, so they were going back and forth here, you know, but kind of in tandem. And I can't tell you how unusual that is to have. I mean, like, look at this. They both went retrograde at 10 degrees Aries. Different days, but I mean, only, you know, barely 2 weeks apart, you know. So, in here, the sun always goes into Aries at this time. But let's see. But Neptune, of course, that's 165 years. Oh, I wanted to mention now, when these two planets were retrograde and going back into Pisces, they again are going over 0 degrees Aries because they're going this direction. So they're going over that 0 Aries point, but going backwards. And then here we get down, you know, Mercury and Venus both went direct in Pisces, and then Mercury went over that 0 degrees Aries on April 17th, and then Venus is first or second. It kind of depends on which time zone you're in, but Venus goes into Aries in that 0 degree point. Okay, so, and I mentioned this about, all right, so just to review then, Venus went in on the April 30th. We've got this conjunction May 2nd. And the other thing too about a Venus Neptune conjunction, this can be idealizing war, okay? Because remember, Neptune going into Aries, this happened right before the Civil War. So, so maybe that might even be the illusions and delusions or whatever you want to call it, that's going on around these trade wars, okay, that I'm embarrassed to say our country has started. Anyway, so maybe that's where that some people are idealizing or hoping that these trade wars will be a good thing. Okay. All right. Let's see. And then on May 4th, we've got Pluto is doing that station retrograde up here, like 3, almost 4 degrees of Aquarius. So we'll put him way up at the beginning of Aquarius, but that happens May 4th. And then May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, we've got an interesting little transit, but I do want to point it out because I think we've got there's a whole thing brewing here towards this full moon. Okay, so we've got Mercury is in Aries at like about 21 degrees, so getting kind of, in that third decan of the sign. Remember the three decans that we talked about, 10, that we divide this 30 degrees up into 10 sections. This is sort of our foundation, our learning, and now we're starting to harvest a little bit here on this last 20 degrees or 10 degrees. And then we've got Jupiter at 21 degrees Gemini. All right, so real quick, everybody, fire, air, what's aspect? 21 sextile. Okay, so this is a real kind of, we could be, I always, when I see Jupiter and Mercury together, it's like, watch your mouth. You may just say things that just may come blurting out. So watch out for that on May 5th. Okay, and then on May 6th, we've got Venus is far enough down here in Aries, so she's going to be sextiling Pluto. Okay, air, fire, right? Fire, air. Now this sextile is happening in the 20-degree range, and this one's happening around the 4-degree range. So they're not really speaking to each other, but they're both operational. So I'm just wondering if this seems to be building for something. And and I also heard that the conclave starts May 7th. To pick the new pope. I was kind of thinking Venus conjunct Neptune would be a great time to pick a new pope. That's me. Anyway, so I wonder if they will get that conclave done pretty quickly with all this sextile energy, and that maybe they're already discussing it and figuring out, and maybe it'll go really quickly. We'll see. Because on May 10th, Mercury is going to slide on into Taurus. But just remember I told you how that Taurus is like moving super fast. I mean, warp speed, right? Because Mercury is only going to spend 16 days in Taurus. So it's basically moving 2 degrees a day, super fast, right? But when Mercury goes into Taurus, it's going to slow down a little bit. It's going to, think about what it says beforehand, that kind of thing. So things, the energy, the communication, our thinking should sort of, and I'm just saying just be mellow, it doesn't have to stop, just be mellow. And then on May 12th, remember that's that full moon, right? So we've got that Sun in Taurus at 22 degrees opposing the moon up in Scorpio at 22 degrees. If I can get that. Yeah, that looks, whoops, pretty good. Okay, and we'll leave the sun down here. So there, that sun is, blasting its light right on the moon and making it full. And then a half hour after that full moon is when Mercury squares Pluto. So Mercury and Pluto squaring, harsh, volatile words, okay, arguments, just people could be throwing things with Mercury and Pluto squaring each other on this right after this full moon. So I would just like, and remember, whenever you see Mercury and Pluto, and then we've got Mercury and Jupiter too, count to 10 before you say something that you might regret. Okay, and then this is kind of getting quite a bit ahead, but I did want to remind you again. Oh, let me put Mars down here opposing Pluto just so we won't forget. Okay. Okay. Let's see. I wanted to also remind everybody about Uranus here at 27 degrees of Taurus, right? Um, oh, I've got bells going off. I'm going to put you on pause just for a second. All right, sorry about that, but my clock went off and my phone went off at like the identical time, so I figured I'd just stop the bells. Anyway, okay, so Uranus down here at 27 degrees Taurus. Now, I've been mentioning this about new technologies, especially around agriculture, that type of thing, but I also wanted to mention this is a classic sign. Taurus, fixed Earth, Uranus, shake it up. And Sun is acting as a trigger here, right? Remember, we use our faster moving planets, especially the Sun and Mars and Venus, well, Mercury, those more personal planets are trigger planets, but the Sun is a really powerful trigger. We'll be triggering this. And so when I see this, I'm not the best astrologer when it comes to weather and earthquakes and things like that, but this is pretty classic. So there could be some earth shakeups for sure sometime around May 17th. And then for that full moon, it's going to be just even a few hours after the full moon. The moon will be opposing Uranus. And remember, in mundane astrology, the moon represents the people. So we could get a lot of independence, people wanting to break the rules, but being very creative about it. And so we'll see what happens. But I'll talk more about that later for sure. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for being here. And as always, from here to there, from here to there, from there to here, from here to there, funny things are everywhere. Oh, and oops, I need to keep starting to remember to do this more. Entertainment only. Okay, bye everybody. See you next week.